So let me ask you this. Does it happen in like light bulb moments for them? Like, do you see like, oh man, it wasn't clicking and now it clicks? Or is it just like gradually over time you start to see stuff sink in?
Well, Alex, first off, I want to thank you for having me on the podcast today. And
I'm just so curious.
So this is the first impromptu podcast we've ever had in the studio.
Oh man, we're gonna find out if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we'll find out if it's a thing.
We have got a treat for you. We are excited. We've got Alex Judd in the studio with us today, and if you have been listening to the podcast, you know we had Alex on a previous episode, but today we had the joy of having you here in Charlotte at the studio in the academy, and we said, hey, you can't leave without coming in and getting on the mic for a few.
Man, well, so good to be with you, Brandon and Brian. Yeah, I mean, this place, it's just like the word on the street is this place is iconic.
Did it live up to the hype?
Holy cow, like there needs to be a bigger word than iconic. Like, man, what y'all have built here at the training academy, but then also just the culture of the team, man. We got to spend time with 40 leaders today, and that's the right word. Just a room full of leaders. I was just so impressed and so grateful to be here.
Well, we're grateful too. This was, we really didn't know what to expect. I mean, you know, I had the opportunity to talk to you and get to know you a little bit, and I'd heard great things about what you were doing for leaders in our industry. I talked to Brian. I said, Brian, I think we need to bring this guy here.
No, absolutely. I mean, Alex was fantastic. I mean, like I said, I've got to tighten up as a leader here. You know, I've got a lot of work to do, and I mean, it was very inspirational, but you know, influencing along the way too. Feel like we established a relationship, which is part of you know, the steps there, and just thank you for everything you did today. I mean, it was awesome. I think our team, I mean, I could just see the heads nodding and everyone writing things down, and I had probably 10 or 15 of them on the way out the door, you know, come up to me and said, thanks, we really enjoyed this today.
And that's not an easy thing with this group. I was thinking about it while you were up there. There are two groups that I think are probably the hardest groups to talk to. It's a group of high school students and a group of construction workers. And, you know, but you were able to engage the audience. And like Brian said, they all walked out of here high-fiving, ready to go. They were pumped up, ready to be in the game.
Man, well, I think it speaks to the culture y'all have created. I really feel that way. And yeah, they were locked in. I was like, man, I mean, it's one thing to be locked in for an hour. It's another thing to be locked in on hour 6 of a full day training. But it's like they were establishing action items all the way up to the end. And that's what gets me excited, because it's like that's how you get a return on what we just did over the course of the day.
Yeah. No, it was powerful, and the way you went about it, which we learned a little bit about you over the last couple of days. We had a chance to have dinner last night, learned that you actually will eat fried food.
Yes, I will eat fried food.
We could have done
I would gladly eat fried food. I don't know.
No, I just thought, yeah, man, with all your Ironmans and marathons, I figured there is no way he's going to eat anything fried, but you did.
Yeah, I do that so that I can eat fried food. That's the whole point.
I think we have to do a redo on the restaurant.
Absolutely.
We won't say the name of it, but
Absolutely.
Don't judge us based on the restaurant that we took you to last night.
We were trying to be respectful of your geographical location.
There you go. Very good. Well, that means we'll get to go out to eat another time.
Absolutely.
So today, for those of you that are listening, today was a training opportunity for our leadership team. We had about 40 of our leaders in the room. Those that are actively making decisions each and every day for the best interests of our team and the company. And we've been through training. We've had the academy. They've gone through the curriculum that we built. Last year, it was boot camp. And it was just 101, Leadership 101. We said, we want to go to the next level. And that was bringing you in and really saying, all right, how do we take what we've learned, that foundation, and building upon it? And without giving away your secrets, you hit on some very cool topics today. The one you went to first was talking about your personal health and focusing on you personally. Why did you decide to go there first?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I have learned in my journey as a business owner and over the course of my career, but then we coincide with teams all the time, that this is just so important to remember as well, is if you want to put your business in order, you got to start by putting yourself in order. And so often we think like, man, I need to go get my job. I need to go get my workplace. I need to go get my business figured out. And then that'll give me time to go work on my marriage, my parenting, my personal growth, all of those areas. And in reality, it's like it never works that way, right? I've never seen a healthy, organized, centered, stable business run by a frantic, frazzled, weak, like disorganized leader. It just doesn't happen. And so one of the things that we talked about in that part of the session is that like healthy organizations contribute to healthy people and healthy people contribute to healthy organizations. And so it's not, man, we got to focus on home and then we can focus on business. It's, man, when we focus on just having a sense of personal growth plan, there's so much that happens that directly impacts the future trajectory of that individual. That affects them in their work. And obviously that has huge ramifications for the business as a whole.
Yeah, I don't think we think about that enough. But this industry, you and I mentioned this before, historically, the people in this industry will just work and work and work and will do whatever it takes and are there before the sun comes up and they're there after it goes down. They will put the hours in and they will grind it out, but they lose sight of making sure that they are refueling the tank, that they're resting. I know we're all guilty of that a little bit. And one of the things, the takeaways was make sure that your input matches your output.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to be good for your team.
That's right. We highlighted that. I mean, that line that I just think is so powerful. It's if your output exceeds your input, then your upkeep will be your downfall. And that is just so true, right? That, you know, we say we want everyone to operate as a leader because we say if someone depends on you, then you are a leader. Well, what is leadership? I believe, and this is what the team resoundingly agreed to today, which was so cool. Leadership is service. Well, what is service? It's pouring yourself out in the best interest of other people. And if you are doing that all day, every day, and you don't have a plan for recharging your batteries, you're going to be on empty sometime. And so it was one of the things that I thought was so cool about today and honestly unexpected is a lot of times whenever I get to work with construction groups, they're not bought into the value of personal growth. They're like, okay, let's focus on work. And what was so cool about this crew is they like wanted to talk about that stuff and they wanted to focus on that stuff. And even were pretty candid and open about like, man, I'm realizing I'm red in some of these areas or I'm yellow in some of these areas, but I see clear steps now to become green. And I just think that always has an impact on the workplace.
That's cool to hear you say that because Brian and I can remember when they weren't that way.
Oh, no.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So what changed there? I'm going to ask y'all a question because that is a massive transformation because it feels to me as though they're now hungry for that.
Personally, I think the biggest thing was our values. I mean, when we really started becoming a values-based company, and we started that journey in 2017. And to your point today, I mean, you got to. That's a daily thing, and that's what we did, and we're continuing to do that today. I think at that point is when things really started coming together, and they started working together, you know, as a team and having those values. But then the other piece is it's been our leadership classes. I mean, we Brandon and I, and then Grayson and Tim, we did a boot camp, which we brought in every field leader, and then everyone that was in that room. That was around at the time. I mean, they went through our boot camp, which was core value boot camp, how we work together as a team, and you know, clarifying the processes and procedures of how this group works with this particular group, and then we implemented some of the extreme ownership stuff, you know, and talked about the 12 principles. And when we really started seeing some traction at that point, I think with the group, you know, working together like that and being able to open up and talk, because before you couldn't drag it. You couldn't drag it out of them.
So let me ask you this. Does it happen in like light bulb moments for them? Like, do you see like, oh man, it wasn't clicking and now it clicks? Or is it just like gradually over time you start to see stuff sink in?
Well, Alex, first off, I want to thank you for having me on the podcast today. And
I'm just so curious about everything. I mean, like the recipe behind what y'all have built here just fascinates
you know
me.
what I think it is? I think it was the humility exhibited by Brian and the other leaders to get up in front of these men and women and say, hey, we need to change, and I need to change, and we can't wait for somebody else to do this. We have to own this. And, we didn't invite somebody at that time. It wasn't about inviting somebody in to tell us what we needed to do or how we could do it better. It was about them hearing it from the owner of the company, from the other vice presidents of the company, from the project managers and some of the superintendents. It was homegrown. And so I think that helped people to let their guard down, to be a little vulnerable, which was difficult, breaking through that in the beginning. And so what you got to experience today was probably the result of like 2-3 years of just trying to break through that. And so I'm glad that they were, I felt that too. They were receptive. They were ready to receive what you were throwing out.
Absolutely. And the other thing with our core values, and some of them was the values that you talked about today. I think those are personal characteristics that you can only, we tell them all, like, look, you can use these at home too. And I think it started to resonate. Well, look, this is personal growth. If I can do this at home, I'm gonna have a better relationship with my wife or my kids or my friends. And if you can walk that walk and not just talk the talk, you end up starting to have better personal relationships, and then you're able to work on things. You're able to take the constructive conversations from someone, and whether you call it criticism or not, that they can open up. And the other thing I think that really helped these guys too was the training with DISC, DISC analysis on who they were and how they received information, how they give it. I think that was big, and that was the first thing we did. I mean, we did that in 2017 with most of them in that room, and I think that helped tremendously as well to be able to have those conversations so they would open up and talk to you in a room, because to his point, it didn't happen. Not in that setting at all. You could get it one-on-one, but you would never get 40 of them together to talk the way they talk.
That is mind-blowing. And not only were they talking to each other quite collaboratively, like they were speaking up in front of a room of 40 people, sharing about what they were thinking and what their takeaways were and what they were working on. The other thing that I would call attention to is there is a massive, massive, massive difference between a company that has core values and a value-based company. And this is not me blowing smoke in any way. Like, as far as being a value-based company, y'all are, I could count on one hand the number of companies that I've personally been around that are doing it at the level that y'all are doing it at. But what's so cool about that is, I could walk up to any of the 40 people in here today and I could ask them what are the core values, and they would know the answer to that. And I think you mentioned it, Brian, a little bit during the session. Other leaders on the team also mention it, is it's like the power of that is in its simplicity. And I think so often business leaders think it can't be that simple. It has to be more complex. And actually, when you see something that simple, it's like, oh, that's actually part of the power and the secret sauce of what makes it work.
Yeah, it is. That is the secret sauce. That's what makes this team what we are. And I would say in your measurement tool of red, green, and yellow, we're green when it comes to core values and that piece of it, where I think we're yellow, and where I really pulled something out of it today, and I think a lot of our team members did based off their takeaways, is understanding what winning looks like. And you gave us a really simple but very practical tool that I believe is going to transform this company this year. I think we can enact some of that right away and see immediate results, and that's success statements. Yeah. I thought that was one of the coolest things today that we got out of it.
I think, which I have an incredible team to thank for this, because this is far from just being something that I created, but I truly believe that success statements and all of the content that we share with business leaders around operationalizing your business, I think it is the most practical and therefore most actionable and impactful content that we teach. Because what we see so often is leaders are often way better at reacting when things they don't want to happen occur. They're better at that than they are at proactively casting a vision for what their expectations are. And what's amazing is if you operate with this belief, which is actually a really emboldening belief about humanity in general, most people, most of the time, are just doing the best that they can. if you operate with that belief, then man, you have an opportunity as a leader to say, okay, how do I get really clear for them on what winning looks like? And that's what success statements are that we walked through today. Is you can apply it to roles, projects, and meetings. We focus on everyone in their individual role today. And we said, what are the 3 to 5 areas that you need to be winning in order to be successful in your role? And what's really remarkable is when you walk people through a process for clarifying what that is, number one, it makes accountability a healthy conversation instead of a toxic conversation, but then it just unlocks the floodgates for growth within their role, which is really cool.
I think that's awesome. And you as a CEO and Brian as the owner of a company, who does success statements for you?
Who writes them or who holds us accountable?
Who holds you accountable for achieving success?
Yeah, I love that question for 2 reasons. Number one is because we always teach that if you want to hold accountable, you first have to be held accountable. So often we see like CEOs that are like, we need to get better at accountability in our organization. First question we ask is, who's holding you accountable? They're like, we need to get better in our organization, right? And so for myself, I do it with our COO, Zach. And we operate on somewhat, it's a little bit modified for our circumstances, but it's basically a visionary integrator model, if you're familiar with EOS language. And it's like he and I, red, yellow, green, are 3 to 5 success statements every single week, and we've been doing it for years. But then if you're a sole CEO, you don't have an integrator, you don't have that structure within your team yet, that's literally the primary cornerstone of our coaching program. Is the first thing we do as CEOs is we say, what are the top 3 to 5 areas that you need to be winning in order to be successful in your role? And then let's have a rhythm for holding you accountable to those things. I mean, I had a business owner, a serial entrepreneur, one of the most effective businessmen I've ever met, that was a mentor of mine as I was starting my company. And he said, Alex, he said, the problem with most CEOs is that they spend 80% of their time doing things CEOs don't actually do. And he said, the only way for you to be effective in this role is for you to know what the role actually does that makes an impact, and then make sure that you are being held accountable to those things. And so I wear many hats within our business. What that helped me do is make sure that the ones that only I can wear, I'm actually measuring and managing those areas effectively. And that's just been a game changer for our business.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that was kind of, when in the book, when we were writing down today, I mean, that's, who do you talk to? Same thing. And I put you, Grayson and Tim, very similar to the integrator role, because you don't have that. You sit here and you're right. I mean, you think about all these things that you think needs to be done or you'd like to see done, but if you're not holding yourself accountable to make sure they're getting done, how can you hold someone else accountable to be assured that it's getting done? And I was red. I mean, I'm terrible, at that. I mean, I put a lot of, trust is really not the word. I mean, I kind of let the team run and go, and the team does a fantastic job. But I think today, for all of us, when we start talking about stakeholders and really, really holding this thing and getting serious about getting better and better at what we do, I mean, I think it really kind of opened the door for everybody in there to have the light bulb go off and say, I get it now. And that was thanks to your explanation on how you broke it down. Because you broke it down with the success statements. It's very simple. It's not a metric of, your typical scorecard. And I think even with some of the things that we're doing now with Metric Minds, with Brandon and the team that he's assembled, we've got to track what we're doing, no doubt about it. But when you start talking about accountability, the whole success statement thing, that's the way to do it. It's simple. It makes sense. I mean, you're not digging into all the details. You're creating a conversation. You got the relationship with the folks that you lead, and I think you're going to get way more discretionary effort out of that than did you achieve your numbers. That's right. Or did you hit this production, or did you hit that production? And like a project manager, for instance, I mean, they're trying to achieve a schedule. Well, no, it's red. So we didn't achieve the schedule, or we didn't achieve it across all jobs. But you take that and you dig into the what and why behind it. It could be that it wasn't the PM's fault, and I think that was the thing. I think you used the term. It's not who did what; it was the outcome. So the outcome is what we didn't achieve our goal on. But what it allows you to do is go in at a high level and debrief that and say, okay, which group or how did we break down to miss our schedule, or maybe our schedule was never something that we could achieve in the get-go. Versus just saying schedule was off, or it rained, or we didn't get our material. It really helps you work on the group when you can kind of work on each individual's impact that they bring to the table. So I thought it was really cool the way you laid it out there.
So well said. I often think about success statements as like, this is the infrastructure necessary for servant leadership to occur. I think there's so many people, and I talk to a lot of people from this industry, quite frankly, that they say, like, we want to serve our people in the field. We want to help them win. And it's like, well, the first way you can help them win is help them know what winning actually looks like. Like, I can't tell you how many places I've been that I can go to team members in the field and ask them, tell me, what are the top 3 areas that you need to be winning in order to be successful in your job? And they either don't know the answer or the answer they give is wrong. And that's bad news. But the good news associated with that is like, holy cow, there is so much opportunity on the table. There's so much low-hanging fruit. And so that's what was so cool. I mean, this place is humming. Let's be real. Like, y'all are all-stars, and like the team in there is all-stars. And for y'all to be saying like, oh man, we could crush this accountability thing. We could get way better at this. I'm like, it's literally hard for me to comprehend how good this place could get if people started to get really, really hyper clear on their roles and what it took to win. It's exciting, man.
And what's cool about it is they want to know that.
Yeah.
It's not like we're saying, hey, this is what you need to do. They're asking for it. What do I need to do? What is winning? What is my contribution to the goal and the vision?
That's right. That quote that always stands out to me that I share with y'all today is, I'll never forget where I was when I first heard this, because man, it just punched me in the gut, was unspoken expectations are front-loaded resentment. And it's like, I save myself so much heartache as a leader, and I save my team so much heartache as team members whenever I just establish what am I expecting, and then make sure that those expectations don't just stay in my head, but I get them out of my head so that people can actually be about the business of meeting them.
And I'm sure, I don't want to speak for you, but I would imagine most of us in that room could sit there and think of 2 or 3 times already this week where we've gotten frustrated with someone that had no idea what the expectations were.
No, absolutely. I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, anytime we deal with typically we call it, people opportunities, issue, it's always someone didn't know. It's never really they did something wrong. It happens some, but typically is they just didn't know. And, didn't know their role. They didn't know what they should have done in a particular circumstance or situation they may have been put in. And even sometimes their leader didn't know, and I think this is really going to help, tie up a lot of loose ends, I think, that we had. It's not that they haven't heard these things. That's the other thing is they hear this all the time, but it's like people need parameters so you can have those conversations and have that sit down review with them to talk about how successful you have been versus how bad you were. Let's talk about, did you achieve the success? So it's so much easier, I think, to sit them down and talk about that. So I'm looking forward to writing them for all.
See what you've done?
I love that, man. Yeah, I mean, there's some leaders that I meet that they say, I'm really excited about success statements. My goal is I want us to write it for 3 team members by the end of the month. And Brian McManus, leave it to Brian. He's like, we're going to get everyone's success statements as soon as
they'll be done by the end of the day tomorrow.
Yeah, I just love that. But I would be interested. I mean, this would obviously be a ballpark number, right? But I wonder what percentage of the complaints surrounding the workforce in this industry are related to actual disorder and disorganization, and it's not actually the workforce's fault.
It's majority of it.
It's majority. I mean, if you put a number on it, I would say it's 90 to 95%. I mean, it's when you sit down and you debrief and you talk to these people, I mean, it's either they didn't. It's the whole purpose, the genesis for the training that we told you about last night that we wanted to do, because you could see that gap in what we were doing. We wasn't doing our job. I wasn't doing my job of providing the tools that all of our teammates needed. But then you take it back to the soft skills. The folks, it's what they've learned their life prior to even starting here. They just don't know. And if they assume typically that's when the mistakes happen. And it's really not the mistakes as much as how it ends up getting handled. You know, your leadership doesn't handle the situation the way that it should get handled because they didn't know. So you end up, it's like, well, dadgum, this was really just one big misunderstanding, and it's all my fault because I didn't prepare them for it. And that's really what you end up. And I'd say it's 90 to 95%. It's not. It's typically not the other way.
Was that the answer you expected?
I mean, I thought it might be high because it's coming from y'all. That's what's interesting is it's an attitudinal thing. Because I have met leaders that would say 80% of the problem is the workforce, 90% of the problem is the workforce, and maybe 10% is disorganization. And it's like, as long as you believe that, you're probably right. And you have now labeled your lid as something that you probably can't impact that much.
No humanity in itself, nobody for the most part has intentionality to screw up.
Yeah.
They just don't.
Well, I think, and the people that are, there's a label for that. It's called psychopath, right? Like, I'm going about this to be like just malicious.
And we've seen that.
But we added that to the application that we do not.
Are you a psychopath?
Yes.
You check yes or no.
That is,
I mean, nobody comes to work, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to screw up today. They just don't, and I think if you get their hearts, you understand a lot of times the what and the why behind the decisions that they made, because you can talk to them and create the relationships. And I think the more and more you do that, the better things just continue to get.
There's a Jordan Peterson principle that I think really applies there. He says that opportunity lives where responsibility has been abdicated. And that's where it's like, holy cow, dirt world right now. It's why I just admire so much everything that Aaron Witt and his team is doing, companies like y'all's, companies like Sargent. There's just so many people that are, just taking the lead. There is so much opportunity. And I get so pumped about that because I think the type of work that companies like this provide, I think it's biblical. I think human beings were created for hard work, and that something powerful happens in terms of internal transformation and character development when we realize, man, there's value to me applying my skills, my strengths, and my talents to doing something that creates value for other people. Like, there is so much goodness in that. And it's like, yeah, there are some nasty things in our country right now with regard to the number of one-parent households that people grow up in, with regard to the standard for education, with regard to the way we're preparing people for the workforce. Sure, there's stuff that's wrong with that. How much opportunity? And if you could be the person that offers people a job that helps them discover what they're good at, and then they find a sense of meaning that lives with them for the rest of their lives and impacts their families for generations, what else could you possibly do? It's just, it's an adventure, I think, what y'all are involved in right now.
See, that right there is why everybody walked out of here high-fiving each other today. Alex, I love it. I know you're exhausted. I'm curious, though. I watched you for 6 hours stand in front of this group. You were by yourself.
Is this a grievance that you're sharing right now?
You were up there. You were by yourself. You didn't come with a big team. You were there on your own. You led the whole thing. I know when I do a dream experience and I'd get done with a dream experience, I have poured everything I have into that. I'm exhausted physically, mentally, emotionally, but yet at the same time, I'm filled with so much joy knowing that I was able to serve in that capacity. What do you feel like after you get done with a session like that?
Oh, man, I feel like I want to go drive a bulldozer for the first time. Like, I threw a wall. I'm actually an introvert by nature, right? I recharge personally by myself, but there is something so gratifying about spending time with people that genuinely care about growth. And that was this crew today, because I just have this internal belief and this conviction that, like, it is a powerful day when a person decides that their growth is their responsibility. And I got to spend a full day with 40 people that had made that decision and were now just saying, how do we grow? And there's nothing else on the planet that I would rather do.
Isn't that something, how it works like that? Like, when you choose to serve, you win. You get the benefit from that. Look, I know you're tired, you're exhausted. I am so thankful for not only you coming and spending the day with us and investing in our team, but coming into the studio, sharing a little bit more. I want to close because I know you're not going to do this, but I'm gonna give you a plug. Because this was unreal. If you have seen any of Alex's work, or you've been following him on social media or LinkedIn, let me tell you, the hype is real. Path for Growth and what you are doing right now, and what the concepts and the principles that y'all have put together they are brilliant in their simplicity. And they are so applicable to our industry and to our team and to leadership. You were masterful at engaging the audience, which is a very difficult assignment, and especially in our industry. People, are sometimes, this group not so much, but people are reluctant to open up. And you were great in that. You knew everybody's name. You called. We had 40 people in that room. Did you notice that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You knew everybody's name. I don't know how you did that. You have to teach me that trick. That'll be the next session. You were relatable. You had done your homework. Somehow you were able to speak about our projects, our core values, what we've been doing. And so I appreciated the fact that you had spent time really getting to know us and our culture and our team. And then the part that I personally I admired so much was the fact that you were able to weave in your faith into your message today. And it wasn't overbearing. You didn't go preaching, but there was a common thread there of servanthood and a model of true leadership that you were able to weave into your message. And so I appreciated that today. Matter of fact, when you talk about success and success statements, and we look at what does that look like for each of us personally, one of the ones that I always go to, I wear this on my wrist every day. I've got it on my truck. Brian's seen it. Actually, I can't show you now. I've actually got it tattooed on my rib cage.
No way.
But it's John 3:30. It's that he must increase and I must decrease. And I have to remind myself of that 100 times a day, that if I'm red, yellow, or green, if I'm red, then I'm making it about me. That whatever decision I'm making benefits me and doesn't glorify him. So I wanted to give you that just because I know that's your heart, and really appreciate you sharing that with us and our team today.
Man, that means a lot, Brandon. And yeah, to you and Brian and the whole team, both. Number one, you got a good thing going here, and I'm just so grateful that y'all would trust me to be here and to spend time with your people. Because y'all are doing something that's really special, and I think it's just getting started.
We hope so.
No, we hope so. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. We had a ball.
Yes, sir.
All right, Alex. Where to next? Back to Texas?
Arizona. Yes.
Oh, that's right, Arizona.
Tempe, yeah.
That's right. But you went to Texas. That's why I got
Yeah. People always ask me, are you going to move back to Texas? You're such a Texas fan. And I always say, well, I'm thinking that Texas will eventually absorb the entire western United States. So I think Texas will move to me.
There you go. Alex, thank you so much. It was fun having you with us today. Look forward to you coming back. Thank you for listening to this episode of Give Us the Dirt. Our podcast is powered by Hoopah Grading Company in Charlotte, North Carolina, and produced by Well Run Media and Marketing. Visit our website at giveusthedirtpodcast.com and subscribe to this podcast on Apple and Google so you never miss an episode.